Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey, who's a little behind in his correspondence, as I understand it.
Well, Jim, you know, at the end of each show, we say, where can you find us? And I typically say, well, I'm at Eric Hersey on Instagram, Twitter, and all the above. Well, it turns out that people did take me up on sending messages over on Instagram, except for that Instagram kind of paywalls or at least hides most of the messages that you're not connected with already. So since I didn't know these people existed, there's a button that says request, and it's kind of hidden. So for some reason this week, I clicked on that button, and I found messages from the first week we started recording till almost 2 weeks ago, all the way. The best was from 2022. Now, granted, it wasn't from the show. Another Eric Hersey from across the nation here just messaged me and said, "Hey, I'm messaging you because we have the same name."
Wow.
So
okay.
So
right.
Yeah. Well, which was fun. So I have not been receiving a lot of these messages. So all those that reached out, and there was a decent amount, I just reached back out to you. So I apologize. But just to let you know that I will be checking that little button every single week now, just to see if people have some ideas and conversation. And good news, Jim, we have probably a good solid 10 new show ideas requested from people that thought I was just giving them the cold shoulder.
I love that. Okay, cool. That is cool to hear. And by the way, folks, on this week's show, we have a ton of Halloween Horror Night related news, but you have a particularly interesting item I think we want to talk about at the very top of the show.
Yeah, well, it's breaking. Okay. So I just saw it over on X now, and it's causing an uproar. And once again, it is dealing with our Deathly Afraid necklaces. So that caused a little bit of a stir last week, just in terms of people thinking if they exist or not. Well, we can kind of see the wrong way to use this. And there are a couple influencers or content creators out there that decided to buy this. And the whole purpose of their videos was to taunt said team members and scare actors by basically calling them out and showcasing the Deathly Afraid red glow, which, let's be real, this is not a cool thing to do, and everybody online is shaming them, but they're also sharing their content. Don't share their content. That is not cool.
No, that is genuinely a jerk move. I mean, you know, if anything, that puts a Universal team member, again, who's got a job for Halloween Horror Night, in an awkward position. And it's like, look, if that's your idea of quality content, go get a job at McDonald's, okay? I mean, just that's literally making life difficult for another human being. And what is the point of that?
Right. Well, it's got us talking about it, but in all the wrong ways. Do not do that. And truth be told, a lot of people are like, it's going to ruin it for everyone else. Right. Yeah. And just to tell you, and there's a nice plug to Touring Plans, because they had a nice little article. It was a real quick article that just says, hey, we tried this. And the writer said they went through the scare zones without and there were people up in their face, as they should be, as what we signed up for. And they said when they put it on, they were left alone. So, and granted, these are just the scare zones. So I personally like the option of having one of these, because my daughter would be wearing it and I could go through and she could hang out and feel comfortable and safe. But now if people are using it incorrectly and taunting and stuff like that, we don't want to see this go away.
No, we do not. We do not. And I did hear also a story about, I guess somebody brought a service dog to the event. And they put their, do not scare necklace on the dog. And, evidently the dog got treated very, very nicely. So, I mean, I don't know, mind you, there's still the scary cat lady house, which we'll get to later.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, before we get to the scary cat lady house, we have to acknowledge our sponsor. And that is, of course, unlockmagic.com. And if you are planning a trip to Universal Orlando or Walt Disney World, you should check out Unlocked Magic because they offer real discounts up to 12% off of theme park tickets. And, obviously, given what we were just talking about, Halloween season down there in Orlando. Because again, it's September. That's first days of September. That's when I automatically think of Halloween. Anyway, with Unlock Magic, you can get discounts on Mickey's Not So Scary tickets. Likewise, looking a little further down the line, Mickey's Very Merry and Jollywood Nights, and of course, Halloween Horror Nights. So be sure to visit unlockedmagic.com and save today. So, okay, now we are past the first weekend of Halloween Horror Nights, and you and I have yet to attend this year's event in person. But on the other hand, we've gotten some wonderful feedback from folks who've actually been to the event. And in fact, our friend of the show, BioReconstruct, chimed in with a lot of stuff. But you've collected a lot of the very best info, Eric. So do you want to walk us through this?
Yeah, well, the messages on Twitter, I realized how to check those. So I did get some good messages from people out there. So thanks for sending that in. Really appreciate you guys giving us a firsthand look so that way we can kind of provide it to everybody out in the public. But there were a couple things that were thrown out that I thought would be helpful for those who are still going down there. Lot of praise for the WWE house. So that's the Wyatt Six. If you're a wrestling fan, they say it's a must visit. And then there's a lot of praise on people that, necessarily aren't. There was somebody that was like, hey, I think I'm going to have to watch wrestling because I went through a house. So ultimate praise there to Mike Aiello and his team. Building up the numbers there.
Cool.
But it was listed to open at 5:15, but it seems like they're actually open at about 15 minutes early. It was at 5, so that was some reports. So for those that are going down there, maybe get there early. Maybe you get in there early. Time is money in this case. Have you seen the Freddy's house? Anything like? Have you got to see any of the still frames, or just even hear about the busyness of this?
Oh, I've actually seen some chunks of video that people have shot, and this is next level stuff. This is
yeah.
They have done an amazing job of making the world of the game, and let's be honest, the film's real. The downside of them doing such a good job is, queue filled up fast, right?
Right. So almost everybody I've seen, and it's a matter of it fills capacity right from the get-go. And we got some insiders basically timing stuff, and it was reported 65 minutes total, and that was 45 minutes outside or inside and then 20 outside. So, and it was posted at 1:30. So it can vary. Right. So it was posted at 1:30 and they waited 65. But there were rumors that the express pass were a little slower than usual. But then again, this is the first week. And everybody and their brother that wants to be there, get the content, see it first, not have it spoiled by, online stuff are there. So be weary that you're going to wait for some of these houses.
Absolutely. Okay. So now that said, what's kind of fascinating to me is it sounds like the folks at Universal Orlando have kind of changed the setup backstage, especially for queuing, for people to enter these sound stages where the houses are staged.
Yeah. And it looks like there's a lot of covered corridors now, so you can actually go in. And I will give shout out to BioReconstruct on this because this was the best. It did an overhead view and actually had it labeled the different houses to where you would go. And it turns out it's kind of like in a rectangular loop. So all 4 houses are kind of accessible from the Music Plaza or near like the main studio's gift shop. So I thought that was really cool to see overhead because once again, I have not been. I was there earlier last month when they were setting things up. So I saw some of the Crooked Lady, the Cat Lady houses and so forth, but I wasn't really sure where everything was, but they does a nice overlook there. So I would go over to BioReconstruct and you can check out his some images, and he has it kind of looped out there so you can see it.
And now kind of one interesting note here is that, all of the exits supposedly funnel, especially for the soundstage based houses this year, they funneled back into Music Plaza, but is it BioReconstruct who noted that there was no food or drink served in the pass-through? Or
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure if it normally was or how that was, but just be aware, no food and drink. So You'll have to get something on your own.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice. Okay, so I've been hearing a lot about Terrifier. And particularly one's options when one enters Terrifier.
Yeah, did you see that there is a dry path and a bloodbath? So basically, firstly, I don't know if this has ever been done, and you guys historians that's been to all these, has there ever been a house that you get wet in? Because you do in this one.
I'm there have been a number of these things that are set seaside, or you go under the water or that sort of thing. But I think the fact that it's like you may get wet as in a bloodbath, that's a little different for this year.
Yeah. Well, that house has been, lots of people have been talking about, and what Art the Clown has been all over the internet in terms of people getting good content there. Also, another aspect of like poor guy is just being filmed at every single angle, but lots of cool content there with Art the Clown as well. So I think that house I heard is pretty disgusting as well. Some people, I don't know why yet. I haven't watched any of the online walkthroughs for the Terrifier house yet. Part of me still says, well, if I'm going to go down there, I want to be genuinely shocked, but we'll see when that time comes when I can have to make the call if I'm going to be able to slip down or not.
Okay, that an admirable amount of self-control there. So
that's what I try.
On the other hand, we talked at the top of today's show about how even folks who don't like wrestling, after experiencing the Wyatt House, like, wow, I think I need to start watching wrestling. But the one downside to the WWE house seems to be the exit, right?
Yeah. It sounds like it's way in the back. And so if you want to do the loop again, you're going to have yourself a decent walk.
Okay.
Which I did see a couple people complain about that, but listen, there's it's a theme park.
I don't know. No, that's it exactly. And oh my God, you're going to stand in a line too. Okay.
Oh my.
So anyway, and now normally this is your bride's side of the turf. The lovely Lauren Hersey, who I do the I Want That Too podcast with, but we do have some merch notes here. In fact, this is kind of cool that you can get a pin that designates that it's your first Halloween Horror Night.
Right. Now, I don't know. I wonder how many people this week it was their first, because everybody online just seems like they've been there forever.
Yeah.
But if I went, I get one of those bad boys because I have yet to do that.
Well,
so yeah, but if you want, you can get it at guest services, so it's a nice keepsake. And,
okay.
And I'm sure somebody out there will have it on eBay too for their if they want to keep it.
Okay.
And we talked about the no scare lanyards, basically Deathly Afraid. So. Even if you're not going to use it for $20, it looks pretty cool. Yeah. I think that would be a cool thing to have.
Yeah, but again, I just want to make sure everyone remembers BioReconstruct's note to the effect of if you're in the middle of the street, you're fair game. If you're on the sidewalk, that's your safety zone. So just keep that in mind. Beyond that, so we've talked a little bit about the houses. Of course, there are other aspects of Halloween Horror Nights, and among them, we have the Lagoon Show, which has been changed up for this, right?
Yeah, so I wasn't aware that there was a Lagoon Show, and I'll tell you, I've very much loved the what is it, Sensational, the Lagoon Show that happens normally. Well, in this case, there's the Hauntophonic, the Ghoulish Journey, that is pretty much in the same spot, but obviously all Halloween Horror Nights themed. So I would be very interested to see that, because I think they did a very good job with projections and the water and so forth. So there's that one. And then there's a Nightmare Fuel Show, which I don't know much about that, Jim.
Well, no, it's staged typically these days in the old Wild Wild West setup. And it involves typically a lot of fire, some great dancers. I mean, but at the same time, can I say that as the show's designated old fart? It's loud. All right. And in fact, I think, again, BioReconstruct has suggested ear protection.
Yeah.
Especially for this year's show.
Yeah. I'll have to dig out we went to Monster Jam not so long ago, and it was loud, so we had to buy the ear protection there. So if you've been one of those, get the earplugs out. I think he suggested a purple 60 rated ones. Like there's like earplugs that are rated for 60 and they're purple. So
got it.
There you
now,
go.
Where the Nightmare Fuel Show is being presented is right next to, of course, Diagon Alley. And what's nice is they're continuing this year the Death Eater aspect of Halloween Horror Nights. So we're getting kind of a different bend this time around, right?
Yeah, I did watch this one online.
Mm-hmm.
So I cheated on this one and I did watch because I was very curious on how they pull this off. But the Death Eaters are actually looking for, they're hunting Harry Potter now, and they're just trying to recruit people to the dark magic. About a 6-minute show maybe, and it's on the stage where they normally have the bard and the singer.
Okay.
So it's back there, and essentially they're searching, and you'll hear Voldemort over the loudspeakers, and he's looking for it, and they kind of do like a simulated, walk around, and then they grab 5 or 6 individuals from the crowd, and then they all kind of do like a duel, like with their wands against each other, which is interesting in its own right. But they're just trying to test to see if you're good enough with the dark magic that you could be part of that. And that's pretty much it. It's cool to see the Death Eaters.
Yeah, always. And, I got to tell you, when you're down in Carket Market there in the dark, and, a Death Eater sidles up to you, that is adult diaper time. I'm just going to say that. Now, mind you, little Harry Potter additional news here. I don't know if you saw just today, the folks who run the licensing magazine. Next year is the 25th anniversary of Harry Potter, and so there's there's new logos and new merch coming. But the more intriguing thing to me is, did you see this news in regard to the Harry Potter series that's on HBO, the one that's already shooting?
Well, yeah. I've seen a lot of people talking about it there, and we just recast what's his name?
Warwick Davis.
There we go. I was going to say Willow, but that's not correct.
No. Well, that's the thing. Warwick starred in the original Willow and then did the Willow series for Disney Plus. And this is where it finally gets interesting, because this is, Warwick has agreed to come back and play Professor Flitwick in the new series. So he is the first actor to come back from the film series to do this new TV series. So that's kind of unusual. In fact, I don't know if you also saw another weird little bend on it. The New York production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, where Tom Felton, who played Draco Malfoy in the films, is now actually playing that same role in the stage show.
Wow.
So, it's kind of interesting to watch both Warwick and Tom sort of revisiting characters. So, again, I'm going to be intrigued to see what this time around, what's different about Flitwick.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And I'm sure there's going to be lots and lots more news, especially if it's the 25th anniversary. They need to milk that as best as they can.
Absolutely. Okay, so now, and again, yes, lots of stuff going on Halloween Horror Night. But at the same time, we are now 10 days, 2 weeks into the dismantling of Ride Rockit, and been a lot of talk about a certain facade coming down, right?
Yeah, well, they've been moving. I mean, they didn't stop. Like, it's just been nonstop pulling things down. But did you see that the Guggenheim Museum facade actually came down, which I didn't. I had to look at side by side because I didn't realize it was there. I don't know. You're just immersed in a whole bunch of different buildings, and then it's just like, hey, they took this down. I'm like, all right, what did they take down? But yeah, so lots of great overhead shots that we've got from our friend BioReconstruct, and have been following this. But I'm kind of wondering, do we have any more news or any more rumors on what is going there? Because I just keep seeing, and I don't know if it's fan service, but I just keep seeing that everybody's saying it's going to be Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I mean, where this gets fascinating, again, talking with friends on the Universal creative side, and 2 rumors to the effect of, yes, Ghostbusters front of the park on expanded version of Ride Rockit, but where this gets fascinating is that supposedly Fast and Furious, we're going to see that go away for a new Back to the Future thing that in fact I guess there's been some discussion of taking the exterior of the show building there, and it's Courthouse Square. So,
That is so wild and I mean, I'm all for it because I
mhm,
love the nostalgia aspect. I like the old films
mhm.
and so forth. But Back to the Future, it's not, that's a weird one because it doesn't have like any new IP. Like they are not, like with Ghostbusters, you have movies that came out over the last
Mhm.
5-10 years.
Mhm.
Back to the Future, there's not a Back to the Future 4 coming out, is there? I mean, there's
Well,
not a
no,
reboot, or is there?
it's so interesting that you said that, because Bob Gale, who wrote, Back to the Future
Yes.
with Robert Zemeckis, is on the record as saying, "Stop asking me about Back to the Future 4. I'm not doing it." But he did Back to the Future, the musical, for the stage, which, again, we talked, finished
Mm,
its Broadway run
yeah.
last year. And Robert Zemeckis is on the record as saying, "Well, all right, we won't make a Back to the Future 4, but I'd really be up for the idea of making a movie version of Back to the Future the musical." So it's like, okay. I mean, I
Huh.
think you two guys need to get in a room and talk, and
Yeah.
maybe sort this out. But by the way, since we're talking about Back to the Future, this news comes on the heels of the Jaws re-release this past week. Did you see that it was number 2 at the box office this past weekend? The Labor Day.
Are you
It
serious?
was.
No, I did not see that.
It
Wow.
was. It sold $9.9 million worth of. By the way, and again, not to rub salt in the wounds at Disney there, but it did outgross both Freakier Friday and Fantastic Four: First Steps. The only thing that outgrossed it was what is it? That horror film, Working. I want to say that did $12 million worth of
Wow.
but yeah, that and what's interesting is, on the heels of this, Universal just announced, and I love this, on October 31st, for a limited engagement, Back to the Future is going back into theaters. But
Uh-huh. I did see that's so funny. And I was big. So actually last night, to be honest, Lauren saw Back to the Future for the first time. I had right.
no,
I forced her to. I've
oh,
I've been wanting to watch Back to the Future 2 with
yeah,
Miles because we watched it 2 weeks ago, just
yeah,
his first time watching. And I'm like, Lauren, you want to watch Back to the Future 2?
mm.
And she said, well, I've never seen the first one. And then I just lit her up. And I said, what is wrong? So we just finished it last
What did
night.
she
So we're
think?
going to be
What did
watching.
she think?
We all listen. It's a perfect
Oh,
film.
no,
Come
no,
on. We're talking. Listen,
absolutely.
Jaws. Now I can't say. I think Quentin Tarantino said there's like 5 perfect films, and I think he put Jaws and Back to the Future on those. So I think they are perfect films in that aspect.
Okay.
You know, I'm not the one to watch the Jaws, but I know how amazing it is. So yeah, I'm excited to watch Back to the Future too, and I'm all for it. If this turns into a ride. I'm all for
Okay.
it. Which actually spirals into this next story
Okay.
pretty well because I saw rumors.
One note before we step away from Back to the Future.
Uh-huh.
Why this is a must-see, this 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, is it's only going into large format theaters. So they it's now Doc Brown, Marty McFly, and Einstein 10 stories tall. And just picture the moment when that lightning bolt hits the clock the clock tower. I mean, it just sort of that's the thing. As soon as it's like, oh, it's large format, it's like, I am there.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So got to see this. But anyway, all right, let's talk about your other news about other possibilities.
Okay, so this one is tough because this one I saw spreading around on the internet last night. So this is and it's all over the place, and it looked official, but like I could not find it on the internet from a confirmed source. So we'll take this as it is. This is currently a rumor, but it looks like it might turn into something. So I shared with you, Jim, that there is a document that says NBC Universal Evolution Plan, Conceptual Plan number 59. And this is for out in Hollywood. And a gentleman, I believe his name was Sal, shared this out. And then Theme Park Wizard retweeted it, put it behind their Patreon as breaking news. And it appears to be a layout, a specific plan of Universal Hollywood. And on that, it has certain elements circled and marked, one of those being Waterworld, as being replaced by a new attraction and some food and merchandise. And then also there being a couple extra added elements on this that says new stops on the tram tour.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is real, and now granted, the individual that shared it said this was not supposed to be leaked, so no one is confirming, but I haven't seen it on the other the sources. But I mean, I believe there's been talks and rumors about changing some stuff out there, but this caused a huge uproar about the water world going away. But then I also saw some people saying, "Hey, Simpsons is still on there. Maybe they're going to redo." Somebody was like, "Hey, can we turn it back to the Future?" And that's what I was like, well, that wouldn't be a bad idea either. But so what do you know about this, Jim? What do you think? Does this look like a legit plan?
Okay,
should we take it serious?
Well, here's my problem. Okay, now, first of all, earlier this year, we had the grand finale of the tram tour, the Fast and Furious. In fact, again, the West Coast original version of Fast and Furious Supercharged, the thing that's now in Universal Studios Florida. Now, that closed. And there's a lot of folks who pointed to, well, that opens up a lot of real estate. And just next to that is Falls Lake, which I want to say right now they're shooting stuff for what is it?
Odyssey, right?
There we go. Yes. All right. So, and here's the thing: there has been a lot of discussion about, face it, the Harry Potter experience on the East Coast, where one takes a train from Hogsmeade Village to, Diagon Alley. The notion of that should eventually make its way out to the West Coast. Now, what makes this especially fascinating is that, remember, we have the Fast and Furious coaster, which is now actually beginning test phasing. I mean, they're pushing the cars through. We should actually see coaster cars rolling through very soon. But what's kind of interesting is if you go down the Starway, and look at what's going on around the Mummy. There's a lot of Universal insiders who are kind of pointing to that might be the thing that goes quicker. Face it, with the Fast and Furious coaster, people will go and ride that and then continue down the Starway, obviously to check out Super Mario and the Jurassic World ride that's down there. And they're looking to, no other way to say this, Mummy probably is going away for a different ride. Just to sort of balance things out down on the lower lot. Not to say that they won't then do some stuff. I mean, let's be honest here. Waterworld, 1995? Very long time ago. I mean, it did.
But people love it though, right? Isn't it really good?
Well, I mean, it's a people-pleasing stunt show. In fact, there's a reason that it's at the Universal Studios Japan, and it's also in Beijing. You don't have to translate a plane crashing in a lagoon. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that. But again, just right now, it's important to remember that Mark Woodbury, the new head of Universal Parks and Experiences, believes quite strongly in that Universal now, especially with DreamWorks and Illuminations, has a sufficient catalog of IP to, they don't have to go out and get other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And so let's keep an eye on this. Let's see what happens.
We'll see if it goes on anything official. And then, but looks like it's just a plan right now just to look at and kind of wonder.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll stay tuned.
Okay. I just want to stress here that, when they finally built Disneyland, I want to say that was Plan 70. So, it's just like, oh, Plan 59. Good. All right. It might not be the last iteration. Just saying.
Right.
All right. Speaking of things being built at Universal Parks, on last week's show, we were getting into the history of Dueling Dragons. And when we get back, we're going to just dig into that whole, did Universal borrow the idea for this coaster from something that was going to be built at Disney's Animal Kingdom? But first, this
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Introducing the perfect companion to your morning listening routine. AG1's clinically backed formula is now flavor-packed with 3 new delicious flavors, tropical, berry, and citrus. Start the day on a high note with probiotics that taste like the tropics. Mix it up with micronutrients that taste like berry or citrus. And take it all the way back with the classic, AG1 Original, with notes of pineapple and vanilla. Do your health a flavor, or 4, with AG1 Next Gen, the daily health drink. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
And we're back. Okay, folks. Just a recap here on last week's show. We discussed at great length how Walt Disney Imagineering and Universal Creative were brawling back in the late 80s, early 90s. Now, where this gets interesting, Eric, is that this feud did not extend to Universal Studios and Walt Disney Studios. I mean, take, for example, Dick Tracy. Disney released this big screen adaptation of Chester Gould's classic comic strip from the 30s back in June of 1990s. It went out under Disney's Touchstone Picture label. But when it came to where this film would be shot, for a time, Warren Beatty, who not only starred in the movie but also directed it, he seriously considered shooting it in Chicago, and that was largely because of Brian De Palma's big screen version of The Untouchables, which went out to theaters June of '87, and had been shot in Chicago and looked great. But here's the thing: Dick Tracy production designer Richard Silbert. Again, he convinced Beatty, it's like, look, you want this thing to look like a cartoon strip from the 30s. To do that, we should shoot on a backlot. Right? We should shoot on sound stages. But here's the problem, Eric. Disney, at that point, didn't have all that big a backlot. Not anymore. And which is why February of '89, so by the way, some 3 months before Disney MGM opened up down in Florida, Beatty begins shooting Dick Tracy on the lower lot of Universal Hollywood. In fact, there's a particular set of streets, they're called Brownstone Street on the lower lot. And what Silbert did was if you remember Dick Tracy at all, it has like 6 primary colors.
I watched it like maybe a month ago, Jim.
Yeah.
I had an inkling. I was like, I'm going to watch Dick Tracy. And I think I watched with Miles. But yeah, it's a beautiful film.
Yeah, well, and in fact, what's interesting is that Silbert leaned into that whole primary color thing because, again, it's a comic strip in the 30s and turned out to be a good choice because he did take home that year's Oscar for production design. But anyway, they shoot it on the lower lot at Universal. And by the way, speaking of Disney films that were shot at Universal in the late 80s, early 90s, you're going to love this one. Oscar, have you ever seen this?
I don't know.
All right. It's a period comedy starring Sylvester Stallone. Another Touchstone Pictures release. And the gimmick of this one is Stallone plays a gangster who's looking to reform on his daughter's wedding day. Anyway, it's directed by John Landis of Animal House and Blues Brothers fame, and Landis wanted this thing to look as authentic as possible. So he told the powers that be at Disney, like, look, I want to go shoot this over at Universal on Brownstone Street. And so here's the thing: they begin shooting it on the lower lot early November of 1990, but on the night of November 6th, 1990, a fire starts on the lower lot. And by the time this blaze was contained, and Eric, there were 50-mile-an-hour winds that night. In fact, people on the scene reported fire tornadoes.
Oh, geez.
So it took 400 LA city and county firefighters, along with a fleet of water-dropping helicopters, to finally knock this fire down. But by the time it was done, 3 acres of historic sets have been destroyed. In fact, interesting banter of the story I'm just telling. Among the things that were lost, Courthouse Square from Back to the Future and Brownstone Street. And so studio, due to this fire, $25 million worth of damage. And by the way, set by a board security guard.
Oh, geez.
It's arson. All right.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, luckily no sound stages are damaged, but there still now is the matter of Oscar and what can be done to allow production of this John Landis period comedy to continue. And if you want to talk about sort of rubbing salt in the wound to Disney, because, oh my God, how are we going to finish this movie? And Universal's like, well, we have an idea. We've just opened Universal Studios Florida, which, by the way, has a New York street. So how's about this? Why don't we go shoot that movie there? And that's what they do.
Oh, my. At this time, the MGM didn't have the Streets of America?
Oh, it did. In fact, so interesting that you bring that up because, well, first of all, Disney immediately heard that the tour guides, and this is when they're still running the tram through the streets of Universal Studios Florida, and the tour guides can't help themselves. It's like, hey, did you see we're shooting a new Disney film here at Universal? And so and Disney was so beside itself, they literally went to John Landis and said, look, we have a New York street too. You have to come over here and shoot at least one scene from Oscar on the streets of America, just so we can do the same thing. So people riding our tram, we go, hey, look, they shot this movie here. So anyway, the movie finally comes out in April of 1991. And by the way, if you're a theme park history buff, it is kind of fun to now watch this John Landis movie. And especially when it comes to the exterior scenes for this period comedy, you have to look past the actors and go, okay, so is this scene shot at Universal Hollywood, Universal Florida, or Disney MGM?
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to watch it now. I don't really care about the movies at all. I'm just going to watch it in freeze frame.
Okay,
that's awesome.
There we go. All right, now, finally, back to our Dueling Dragons Dragon Tower story. And whether Universal stole the idea for this island adventure attraction from Disney's Animal Kingdom. And look, Eric, I'm just going to flat out say that given that I have seen a lot of the concept art for Dragon Tower over the past 30 years, I honestly don't think Universal Creative is the one who committed a theft here. If anything, I'm going to say that Walt Disney Imagineering, with its key conceit of Animal Kingdom's Dragon Tower ride, which was this inverted coaster that you're traveling in, keep zooming in and out of this same big room at the center of the attraction, which is where this ride's title character, the dragon, who is fiercely guarding this giant hoard of gold. I mean, think Smaug from okay, so you got it from The Hobbit. Okay,
absolutely, that's what I thought.
Okay, but just understand, this was going to be the biggest animatronic figure that had ever been built at a Disney theme park. More to the point, this dragon's head and neck were supposed to be able to whip around quickly and sort of bite at different coaster cars going by on different lengths of track, and the tail was supposed to whip about, and their claw was supposed to reach out. There were several very key animation points on this thing. Anyway, now for me, what's familiar about this is that big central room in the middle of a highly themed thrill ride. That seemed familiar to me because I've been on the Indiana Jones adventure. That opened March of 1995 out at Disneyland, and as anybody who's climbed aboard a troop carrier, inside of the Temple of the Forbidden Eye and had Sala beware the Eye of Mara. Look, you spend an awful lot of time inside of that attraction, rolling in and out of the same big chamber, the one that has that 45-foot tall version of the face of Mara. Now, if veteran Imagineer Eddie Sato is to be believed, Disney actually borrowed that idea, the having a big central chamber in the middle of your attraction that you repeatedly return to, from Knott's Berry Farm. To be specific, that theme park's Calico Mine Ride, which first opened in Buena Park back in November 1960, and was Knott's first real major attraction. And by the way, the big central room in Calico Mine Ride, which you pass through 3 different times on 3 different levels over the course of your 8-minute long experience. That space you travel through is called the Glory Hole. And according to what Mr. Soto told me, the Glory Hole at Knott's is the direct inspiration for the big central chamber inside of the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. The only difference, Eric, is that, your troop carrier, when you're on the Indiana Jones ride, you're moving along at a brisk 14 miles an hour. Yeah. Whereas, if you're doing the Calico Mine Train, I think when you're going downhill, you reach a top speed of 3 miles an hour. Look, it honestly wasn't the case that Universal, decided to build a racing coaster, Dueling Dragons, based on what Disney was doing. If anything, they took the idea from the Batman versus Penguin coaster that was supposed to fly over Gotham City in the Batman theme section of Tooniversal Studios, which was an ever-built companion park to Universal Studios Florida, which was going to be built all around Warner Brothers IP. And we will get to that aspect of this project in a moment. But first, this.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there's one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So we're back. All right. We previously talked about how Universal Studio Florida, first summer, when the park opened, June of 1990, kind of rough. Several of their big marquee attractions, Earthquake the Big One, Confrontation, Jaws the Ride, failed to operate on a consistent basis, which meant that Universal was then forced to give virtually every person who was visiting that theme park that summer a free ticket to return so they could then come back and see the attractions when they were working properly. By the spring of the following year, 1991, Universal had gotten 2 of those attractions, Earthquake the Big One and Confrontation, working consistently, as they should. Jaws, as we mentioned on a recent episode of the Epic Universal podcast, they wouldn't have that up and running till October of 1993, more than 2 years later.
Yeah.
But to be honest, Eric, none of this mattered after May 1st, 1991, which is when Back to the Future, The Ride, opened at Universal Studios Florida, when this motion-based simulator finally began running inside of the Institute of Future Technology, which, by the way, was located in what used to be called the Expo Center at that theme park. Not Epcot Center. Universal Studios Florida finally had the sort of attraction where people were saying, oh my God, you have to go to this theme park. This ride is like nothing you've ever experienced before. And yes, I know Disney had Star Tours, that company's motion-based simulator ride, up and running, at least out in California, by January of 87. But the key difference here, Eric, and I really wish you'd gotten to experience this ride, was the intimacy. I mean, face it, when you climb aboard a Star Speeder 1000, you're sharing that experience with 39 other people. Each cabin holds 40 people. Whereas with Back to the Future, as you made your way through the queue in the pre-show, the folks at Universal Creative did this really smart thing. They kept breaking it into smaller and smaller groups. So now, when it's finally time to board and prevent Biff from further disrupting the space-time continuum, there's only 8 of you. So picture this. The automatic doors open, and that Alan Silvestri's the Back to the Future anthem plays. And I mean, I cannot begin to describe how cool this moment for this motion-based simulator was. And the other thing that was really cool, and sadly this was a fact that eventually got cut, because again, you got to spend money on CO2. But when the doors opened, you couldn't initially see the DeLorean because there was this cloud of CO2. But then it cleared, and it's like, oh my God.
Oh,
it's the thing from the movie. I mean, a convertible version of the all of the little readouts from the movie that you knew from the close-ups that were there. The flux capacitor was there.
Man,
oh,
that is fantastic.
It was.
I hope somebody has it on YouTube that I could and actually got good shots of it. I would love to just somebody that was looking at the interior and everything. I'll have to search for it.
Now, mind you, after you rode it once, you learned, well, you really want to be in the front seat, because there is a video screen up there where Biff and Doc Brown are talking to you. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you were in the back seat, you still had an absolutely killer view of the dome that the movie was being presented on. And this was done in Omnimax. But no, absolutely, totally killer attraction. But anyway, Back to the Future Rides opens May of 1991. So now Universal's park down in Florida has its first real bona fide success. And this is when the folks in the Black Tower back in Hollywood, they start talking about, okay, all right, this thing we got down in Orlando, single day theme park. I think what we really want is a multi-day destination resort, like what Disney's doing down the street. And here's the thing, Eric, that folks inside of Universal Creative, it's like, well, we already have a studio theme park like MGM. So if we're really serious about doing battle with Disney, we're going to need our equivalent of the Magic Kingdom. And, and that is a place that is filled with beloved cartoon characters like Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Snow White, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland. And it's at this moment that Steven Spielberg, who, let's remember, had been a creative consultant on the original iteration of Universal Studios Florida. In fact, Steven is the guy who's often credited with coming up with that park's original slogan, that ride the movies. But anyway, Steven raises his hand and says, well, I have a pretty good working relationship with the folks over at Warner Brothers. I mean, I directed a piece of Twilight Zone, the movie, back in 83. I then did, directed The Color Purple for them in 85, Empire of the Sun in 87. And more to the point, I'm good, close personal friends with Steve Ross, the CEO of Time Warner. In fact, that's how I was able to get the Looney Tune characters for Who Framed Roger Rabbit back in 88. Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Yosemite Sam, Wile E. Coyote, and the Roadrunner. for just $5,000 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's like, well, Steven's like, well, let me go talk to Steve, and see if I can get us the theme park rights to the Warner Brothers characters. So Spielberg goes to talk to Steve Ross and then comes back to Universal Creative. Eric, there is no other way to describe this. This is an absolute sweetheart of a deal. For a single one-time upfront payment of $40 million, Universal would have been able to get the theme park rights to, well, not just the Looney Tunes characters, but the two DC characters that Warner Brothers had the movie rights to, Superman and Batman. All right.
Now, granted, Jim, I don't have $40 million. So, I mean, this is still a lot of money to me, but to them, that's like a steal. And that's just a one-time payment. You don't have to pay that in
payment.
Well, what the heck happened here?
By the way, there was something else on the table here. And by the way, what sort of helped move this along is the year previous, Steven had been working with Warner Brothers Television Animation on Tiny Toons, the Tiny Toon Invention.
Oh, yeah.
Which was their syndicated series that launched the next generation of Looney Tunes characters, Babs and Buster Bunny, not to mention Plucky Duck. And by the way, another weird little bend on the story. If this cartoon-based theme park, Tooniversal Studios, had actually been built where the Jurassic Park Visitor Center stands today at Universal Islands Adventure, there was supposed to be this giant version of the main campus building from Acme University. You remember this from the opening credits. It had the giant statues of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck wearing mortarboards, outside the entrance of the building. But again, this is the plan. It's a theme park built around Warner Brothers' collection of cartoon characters. And so with Steven Spielberg personally, arranging this sweetheart deal with Steve Ross, it looks like Tooniversal Studios is on a glide path to actually happening. So, Eric, what trips the deal up? Okay, the way it's been explained to me, it all came down to merch. That Warner Brothers, as an afterthought, says, oh, by the way, in exchange for giving you all of this stuff for just $40 million, we'd like a 10% cut of all merch sales that are made inside of Tooniversal Studios. And Universal comes back and says, well, we'd be more comfortable with you taking a 5% cut. And Warner's counters with it, well, how do you feel about 8%? And then, Eric, it turns into that whole, remember when Universal tried to buy SeaWorld in 1976 and just would not raise its bid because it offended their business ethics? And so this is the folks up in the Black Tower again getting all offended and deciding to walk away from this deal, which again, stressing, Warner Bros., all of the Looney Tunes characters, Batman, Superman, one-time payment, $40 million.
Over 2%. Over 2% of merchandise sales. That's what they basically... Oh, that's crazy.
All right. Now, where this gets interesting is that it turns out there was actually a reason that Universal officials pushed back hard against Warner Brothers, again, insisting on a cut of all merchandise sales at Tooniversal. And that was because a part of their original deal with Spielberg to be a creative consultant on Universal Studios Florida, they had already agreed to give Spielberg a cut of all ticket sales and merch at the Universal parks, which, by the way, that deal is still in place today, Eric. And he gets an estimated $30 to $50 million a year on the backs of that deal.
Oh my goodness, that is insane.
Well, but on the other hand, we were just talking on last week's show about here's our TV special about, Epic Universe, and here's Steven trotting out going, yes, I came up with the idea of Dark Universe. It's like, that's really interesting. Okay. All right. Anyway, I guess I get what drove this business decision back in 91. But again, when you think about what they walked away from, what they could have had, just very, very, very stupid decision. Anyway, with the Warner Brothers theme park rights deal imploding, Universal Creative still wants its version of Disney's Magic Kingdom, a theme park built around cartoon characters. Only now, instead of being able to acquire all of that IP in a single deal, Universal is going to have to do this the hard way. They're going to have to do it one deal at a time, working with the likes of Stan Lee when it comes to the Marvel characters and Audrey Geisel, that's Dr. Seuss's widow, to slowly build up an assortment of characters to build this second gate next to Universal Studios Florida around. And we'll get to how that got us to Dueling Dragons in the Merlin Wood section of Lost Continent at Islands Adventure on next week's show on the third and final, I promise, installment of this series.
Oh, geez, Jim, we went wild ride there. That was a lot of good information there, so I appreciate that.
But seriously, you got to do the whole Back to the Future experience so that it's worth it to watch the little film elements that you saw in the pre-show before you finally got on the ride, because they did an absolute beautiful job of setting up the story as you made your way through the Institute of Future Technology. One of my favorite rides, and it was just so sad to see it go away. So if they're going to take out Fast and Furious Supercharged and put in a Back to the Future ride, I'd say absolutely, and let's do this while Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox can still be involved in this.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. No, I'm all for it, and we're going to be watching. I think maybe tonight we'll watch Back to the Future 2. So we'll watch 2, then 3, and then we'll watch the ride. We'll see what we can find a YouTube video. So if anybody has any good YouTube videos that they've watched that's point of views and has all the stuff Jim talked about, send it over to @Eric Hersey. I will check it in Instagram. I will find your message, I promise.
Now, speaking of which, we do, in fact, that pile of messages there on Instagram, we do encourage you to reach out, because, of course, we love to use your suggestions for stuff we cover here on the show or potential future features. So, they now know they can get a hold of you Instagram. Where else can they find you, Eric?
Yeah, pretty much. If you're on social media, it's @Eric Hersey. So Twitter, getting more active there. Instagram checking. So what about you, Jim?
I'm where I have always been. I am. You can find me over on X and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and then on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. And with that, folks, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Epic Universal Podcast. So thanks so much for listening, and stick around to see what's coming up this month on the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. Thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you like what you heard, head on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. This really helps get the word out about our shows. We also have some other shows on the network that you might like. Each week, we drop a brand new Disney dish with Len Testa or animation and movie news. Please listen to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. By the way, you can also check out Drew's other podcasts, like The Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, which he does with Charles Hood. For all things Lucasfilm, why don't you subscribe to Looking at Lucasfilm with Brian Gahn? Likewise, we have I Want That Too with the lovely Lauren Hersey, our weekly podcast that features the latest merch and the stories behind that merch. And our Epic Universal podcast takes a look at the Universal theme park. So please join Eric Hersey and I on that weekly. If you enjoy theme park history, we also host Manufacturing the Magic with Shelley and Noah Valladolid. That podcast tells the story of how we got the modern theme parks that we enjoy today. Join myself, Len Testa, and veteran Imagineer Jim Schul for our latest season of Disney Unpacked, our first ever video series exclusively for Patreon. These get released first Sunday of every month, and each month we release several exclusive podcasts to help support this video series. I want to thank everyone that supports the Jim Hill Media Network. For more information about our podcast and content, head on over to jimhillmedia.com. So that's going to do it for now, folks. Thanks again for listening, and we will catch up on the next show.